Alright, I thought I would make a video. Now, there's nothing very important in this video that I want to share, but I'm just going to test if people actually bother to watch it for real if I use a camera. I don't have any special video ideas particularly much here, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself, something I thought of, which is I was watching Prosopa Insights, which is like a physiognomy YouTube channel where you judge people based on their physical appearance, like their faces primarily. And one of the things I I kind of figured out from the video, I'll give a link to it in the description of this video. The video, like the Prosopa Insights video, I'll link in the description so you can watch it for yourself and see if you fit in one of those categories. But I'm sort of a warrior archetype and Mars faced sanguine kind of guy. Now you can't see it, but I do have a bit of a chin that juts out a little bit. And, I'm 130 to 140 IQ probably, or something close to that, roughly speaking. Um, um, Although it wasn't always exercised, and IQ doesn't necessarily translate into actual knowledge or wisdom or expertise. You have to apply yourself. And if you check out my videos on my playlists, where the real juicy meat is basically the Existential Crisis Guide and Toolkit and the 1337 playlist, you'll find that there's a lot of stuff that's basically they're black videos, black background videos, designed more or less just to listen to while you do something else. But I didn't want my appearance to color the discourse or like have to care about my appearance or something like that, basically. Because I was in a rough spot mentally and not really fixing things up, and I'm turning that around now so that I'll have a proper living set of living conditions and responsibilities that I'm actually fulfilling and so on. It's a bit slow to get started, but I'm making progress. And as you can see, the walls are dirty, and that's one of the things I'll be cleaning up in the next half a year or something once I've fixed up the primary other things. Um, let's see what else is there. The video in question does a really good job of breaking down a sort of right and left sort of paradigm between five different categories: the conservative, the reformer, the radical, the intellectual, and then a fifth category called the Machiavellian. And they go through the different archetypes of facial structures and type of operation and so on. But there's a left-right divide that goes through each of the 5 points, um, where essentially you can be left or right for any of the 5 point types of personality or political role. But there's a certain degree of difference between masculine and feminine features. And one of the important things is how far apart are your eyes, essentially. Someone who's leftist, feminine more than masculine, and um, anti conventional values a little more, is going to have wide set eyes that are good for focusing on the big picture but not the details. And what that is it's a very prey mindset. It's a very prey sort of eye structure and so on. So the person is physically embodying the elements more so than the right or conservatives or conventionally attractive people. The person with the wide set eyes, the leftism, the more feminine features, is practicing prey animal stuff mentally more commonly and so on. Whereas the right masculine, the right of center masculine, and conventionally attractive individual is practicing the predator focus. So the prey looks everywhere to scout for danger, and the predator locks into the specific to make the kill. And that's one aspect, and then on top of it are the five aspects of your political mentality role, essentially, and the general facial structures you'll see within those categories, left and right. And the five categories are left and right. Like you can be left or right and just have those, any one of those five categories and the certain temperaments. But there's a layer of predator and elite and prey and peasant, sort of plebeian versus patrician, or patrician for right and elite, and plebeian for peasant and left. Um, that colors your situation personally in the left and right. Um, Although each of the five categories has a strong representation in certain facial structures, essentially. And it kind of makes sense in a way when you think about it, because if genetics impacts, um, what was it? Sorry, one second. I thought this up and then wrote it down, and then I forgot all about it. Basically, fire and forget. Um, um, your genetics impact your physical expression of your body, which impacts your psychology, which impacts your politics. So, what I mean is, you will be more left of center if your genetics make you your eye your the distance between the eyes wider and the distance from the outside of the skull to the eyes less, and then you'll be more prey or predator prone in your psychology because of the expression of your eyes and so on. And then predator psychology is very right wing, and prey psychology is very left wing. And this distinction is why Nietzsche talks of morals or values like master morality versus slave morality and so on, and it's tied to conventional attractiveness. That's why the physiognomy check works in some sense, because your genetics impact the distance between your eyes and some of the body structure and so on and tendencies. And the more elite and predator you are, the more right wing you're going to be, but the more plebeian or prey you are, the more leftist you're going to be, because there's a masculine dominance versus feminine submission element to the person, and that determines something of their role in life when, especially when not consciously acknowledged and held. Um, Now, I will say that this probably explains why the right can understand the left, but the left can't understand the right. Um, um, there's a certain degree of, like, it's evolutionary in some sense, where, like, the predator has to understand the prey to make the kill, but the prey just has to understand run away or hide, and the predator will have trouble locking into that specific thing and then making the kill and locking in. It's like an attention or focus detail thing where like you know what I mean when I like someone mentions John Wick or something. He's a man of dedication, conviction or something, unrelenting focus or something like that. Like it's like the elite guy is the one that can focus on the details properly so that they can get the right thing exactly correct. And that's what one of the things that makes someone an elite in some sense is that they get the details right and so on. Because you can always look, let's say, over here and then look over here and get a picture. But if you don't focus at all, then you can't figure out like the individual hairs on my chin, I suppose, or somewhere on my beard or whatever. You know what I mean? Like one can get a pinhole high resolution, one can get a full spectrum vision that's low resolution. But when you can focus on the high resolution pinhole and just look around, then that negates the disadvantage of the pinhole. Whereas the general picture, if it can't focus, can't make the big picture more detailed. And this explains why, in some sense, predators are superior to prey animals. Aside from the fact that they eat better, they have more concentrated nutrient sources, so they don't have to focus on digestion efficacy. They can focus on muscle density and they can actually feed into the brain's requirement for calories and stuff like that. And it's all tied to the mechanisms of acquiring nutrients and evolving towards those things. And what humans are is they've been prey animals for a long time, but they also became predators for a long time as well. Um, it should be noted that this is not like a one size fits all thing. It's not a one like everyone's totally different from each other with no similarities thing either. It's like a there's like a bubbling up effect where it's like randomized combinations of traits that sort themselves into general categories. Which is why stereotypes work pretty well, but it's not 100%. So you can be pleasantly surprised. It's sort of like stereotypes are kind of like what Gandalf said about hobbits, which he said like you can learn everything you need, everything about hobbits. You can learn everything about hobbits within an hour, but like even after 1,000 years, they'll still surprise you. Stereotypes are kind of like that, and the efficiency of stereotypes is why they're so powerful essentially because they're fairly accurate with minimal information and like you just kind of know the like you can gamble on it and win more often than you lose based on stereotypes of what someone's going to do essentially. Um, the left uses stereotypes of chuds. The right uses stereotypes of soy jacks. Everyone uses stereotypes. The question is, what do they think of each other in terms of like which stereotype, positive or negative representation, do they have for the one or the other, essentially. However, in general, the virtuous and valuable elites will be the right wing, whereas the less virtuous, less valuable people will be the leftists in some fashion for the concrete requirements of survival, essentially. Um, which is why when you had more when society drifted leftwards in its actions, um, society got worse essentially, and problems started to emerge. And then did mass immigration with the inbred cousin, the people that sleep with cousins and stuff like that, the inbreds of the third world and so on, um, further exasperated it. But as I mentioned in my first 1337 video, essentially, or my first and second one, um, by going in that direction and then making another movement in that direction faster than before, another step in that direction or another tier of steps in that direction, like a whole new level in the same direction, and speeding things up, it triggered the response of, oh, that's what's causing it, and we can lock onto it and triangulate what that direction will do, and then we rebelled against it. And that's what Gamergate started with, or started as a pinpoint of, we don't like where this is going, um, and so on. And then the right wing emerged as more and more hardcore and less compromising, essentially, because we had time to see where it goes, um, and we saw that it was accelerating, essentially, and therefore we had a locked in pattern of recognition of, oh, things get worse when you go that direction, and they get much worse when you go that direction faster. So let's go the opposite direction. And that's why the right wing is becoming militant in some fashion and so on. And this is why essentially, um, the project of Antonio Gramsci will fail, essentially, because they couldn't stop themselves from accelerating the decline, essentially. And this is why accelerationists are bad as well, because what happens is the left will already accelerate on its own the decline of society and the third world as well. The left will accelerate the decline of the first world through the invitation of the third world that the left started the decline in of the first world, by being leftist. And essentially, the recognition of the trajectory and what speeds it up and what slows it down, what reverses it, and so on, um, became more evident and obvious as time and observation and theorizing and testing the theories and predictions, um, occurred, essentially. Um, Now, my 1337 video, my first or second video, in the playlist section of my channel, um, gives the mechanism by which we're going to resolve this, essentially, as long as we keep the third world out of our society or something, um, and so on. but I think it's Basic Logic YouTube channel. It's just called Basic Logic. It's got little black background drawings in like MS Paint or something. Um, the one where it says why the third world you learn to call us racist or something or cry racism. Um, that also applies, which is why we have to get rid of the third worlders essentially to return back to good times. But if we do that, it's still going to take some time to sort out the undesirables from the gene pool by basically just letting them do leftist things on their own in their own lives while we do right wing things in our lives, and preventing them from indoctrinating our children essentially. And when we do that, they will be starved of recruitment, they won't reproduce, they'll disappear. The great filter of Western civilization will be averted or passed through yet again to the success of whoever carries on their genetic lineage. Um, and hardship will also help with that. However, hardships weeds out the weak, um, and so on. So our poor genetic makeup as a civilization is because times were good, but now that times are bad, um, people aren't reproducing as much, which means only the elites will reproduce, which means the best people will pass on their genes and culture and upbringing and psychology and so on, and the weakest people won't. If the weakest people can be prevented from indoctrinating or recruiting the elites' young children, essentially. So, cutting off the parasites. Um, so yeah, that's, yeah. And also, basic logic's point about guilt, shame, and then least advanced, fear-based societies, cutting off the invasion of fear and shame-based societies into our guilt-based society will also provide a value to our civilization, essentially. And obviously, we should be imposing our civilization onto them, not them onto their barbarism onto being imposed onto us. Um, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna link my playlist in the description after I link the videos in question from Basic Logic and Prosopa Insights.